Welcome. I'm Dr. Shaw. I'm going to be your instructor for the Religion 100 class, Section 4, which will be meeting this semester from 1 until 1:50 in the Rhyne building. We'll actually be in room 253 in the Rhyne building, so if you're looking in your syllabus that I have sent you, it will be building number 6 on the map that's at the very end of the syllabus. Religion 100 is a required class for everyone at Lenoir University. So as we're getting ready for study together, I encourage you to get ready. It'll be a lot of work, but I hope it will be a rewarding class for you. As we are preparing for this semester, many of you may be coming in as freshmen. In fact, the majority of our class this semester is made up of freshmen, and that's not uncommon because it's often a class that your advisor goes ahead and encourages you to sign up in the fall semester. So many of you may be coming in this month of August. It's rather hot. You're probably just getting oriented to the university. You're trying to figure out where everything is. You're figuring out where the bookstore is. You're trying to figure out where all the buildings are. And it may feel a bit overwhelming, and that's okay. A lot of times transitions like this are a bit overwhelming. So we're going to try to minimize the amount of overwhelmingness as you come in and begin the semester, particularly with this course. There are 2 texts for the class, as you've already seen in the email which I've sent you. The first of those is Theology, the Basics, and by Alistair McGrath. That's a text we've used for some time in this class, and I know there was a bit of a discrepancy at the beginning because it wasn't actually yet established at the time the books were ordered who precisely was going to be teaching this particular section. And it's a book that I have used before, and several of us have used before, and while it's not a perfect text, it works fairly well for what we want to do with this class. The other text you'll certainly want to pick up a hard copy of is the Common English Bible translation. Now, I know a lot of folks have different Bible translations. We'll talk more about translations as the course goes along, but for right now, make sure you have a printed copy of this and aren't relying upon an online version in class. You'll need it for class. So bring those 2 to class the first day that we meet on Wednesday as the class begins. So a few things just as far as introductions. I have already posted on Canvas some things. You'll find it very important to go ahead and get acclimated to Canvas, our online platform. That'll be where you'll find assignments, and there will be questions in preparation for each day's class. Already, there is an assignment posted in preparation for our first class, so go ahead and look for that. There's some questions. If you haven't had a chance to get over to the bookstore and get the McGrath text, there is the I have already scanned the pages, the very few pages for the section for his introductory section, just a few pages there to go ahead and read. And there is a link also to the painting that appears on the front. We have just a portion of it here. And the link will take you to the full size painting. And there are some things to reflect on as you look at that painting and a few other things. So please go ahead and take a look at that assignment on Canvas. It is in the assignment section. You'll complete the discussion questions and post. And as soon as you have posted in preparation for each day's class, I'll know you've posted. And I'll keep track of those during the semester just to, it's part of your grade as far as your participation. So try not to get behind. The goal in this class is to stay ahead of the game, prepare for class coming in, and that way when you come to each class, you'll be prepared for discussion. My whole point is not to lecture the whole time. There will be a portion that will be lecture using PowerPoint, and then you can take the PowerPoints, which I will post also online, and you can go back and review those, and that will help you to better absorb what we've done in class. One of the techniques that a lot of students find coming out of the high school experience is they're not accustomed to sometimes having to look over material that we've just discussed. But please help yourself out, take the time to do the readings in advance, to do the assignments in advance for each class, and then just review for yourself what it is that we went over. Take a little bit of time. A few things that will also help you out. Take a look carefully at the syllabus in preparation for our first class. There is information in the syllabus which will assist you in knowing exactly what it is that we're going to be discussing. And the syllabus, it's 16 pages worth, but it gives you a full explanation of policies, and it is really our contract. And if you apply yourself and will spend the time staying up with the syllabus and the assignments, you will do very well in this class. It will make things a whole lot easier. For many of you coming perhaps out of the high school experience, the idea of a syllabus may be entirely new. A syllabus is really a contract between you and your teacher. So every one of us who teach at Lenoir University and many universities are required to provide for all of our students a syllabus. So I first ask you to take a look at that. That will help you and get oriented to what it is that we're going to be doing in this section in Religion 100. Let me say something briefly. Sometimes students come in and they figure that something will happen. Perhaps they're involved in a outside activity, marching band or an athletic activity, or they're part of a club or organization, which we really encourage, and we want you to be involved in those things. But they will sometimes ask, is it possible, since I missed the class, say on Monday, is it possible for me to go to another section and pick up what I missed? Well, not really, because each of us who teach the Religion 100 class, who are part of the Department of Religion, each teach this class very differently. We've actually made some adjustments this year coming in, and each of us are using the preferred textbook that each of us prefers to use. So my colleagues will be not only structuring things differently, but in some cases actually using a slightly different textbook or an additional textbook in addition to the two that I've already mentioned, the CEB translation and Alistair McGrath's text. So go ahead and get those texts and be prepared. If you miss a class, it will be helpful for you to go certainly and look at the PowerPoint presentations, but it'll also be helpful for you to get with a classmate. If you live off campus, try to get with a classmate who is on campus or off campus where you can meet at a central place and check in with your classmates. When it comes to colleagues in class, let me say something about that. You'll find it real helpful, particularly for this class, but for many of your classes at Lenoir University, to form colleague groups in the dormitory or other locations. Dorms work well for that, or you can meet in the library and have a study group. It really, really helps when you're studying for quizzes, which we will have in this class, 5 of them, for your tests, which are a little weightier in scoring, and also your final exam, because it's a chance to bounce off of colleagues what it is you've heard and what it is you've learned. We'll talk more about that on our first day of class as we review the syllabus and grading procedures. Please do everything you can to be on time. I know sometimes people are coming from other classes that have just let out at 12:50, and you may have to be coming, oh yeah, from the other side of campus or from another location. But as best you can, try to be on time. I want to try to start promptly at 1 o'clock, and I'll close the door and in the Rhyne building to our room 253 again in the Rhyne building. And we will start on time, and that way I can release you on time at 1:50 for you to get to other locations and other classes. So be on time, be settled, go ahead and get the materials out, and let's be ready to discuss and take notes. A few other things that'll help you just as an advance notice. Electronics policy. Every teacher at Lenoir University has slightly different policies regarding classroom conduct and electronics policy. So here simply stated is what mine is. Cell phones are to be muted and in at least in the vibration mode during an examination. You need to put those completely away from you. Put them in a bag, put them in your purse, put them so that you're not distracted by those. Because cell phones, unfortunately, as important as they are, and I carry mine with me wherever I go, but it's important for them not to become a distraction to us in class. So that having been said, since you're putting away your cell phones, make sure you're not sitting in class and busy texting. That will not make me very happy. So please keep those put away. As far as computers and or laptops and tablets, I invite you to use those. However, and this is important, please make sure when you're using your laptops or tablets that you're using it either to be on the Canvas platform, to be looking at the homework material and the discussion questions as we're discussing them, or make sure that you are in a Word document. Please, if I'm going to assume that everybody understands that our focus is Religion 100, please don't be off playing a video game. If I catch it, I will tell you after class that you are no longer permitted to use the laptop or the tablet. So that's simply stated. Everybody is on an honor policy to make sure that what you're about and what you're using the electronic devices is for class. And I'll promise you the same thing. I will endeavor to be on time, in fact, be a little bit early for class sessions, and make sure that what we're about is discussing the material at hand. We only have 50 minutes, and I know it sounds like a lot of class, 3 classes a week, most weeks, but the time will go very quickly, I can assure you. As far as texting and so forth, sometimes I realize that with a lot of our smartphones, sometimes we use smartphones, and I do at certain locations, to check campus email. But please do not be using either your laptop, your tablet, or certainly not at all be using your cell phone. Cell phones are hard to use for that purpose. Under North Carolina law, as by way of example, we do not permit drivers to text and drive. Well, there's a good reason for it. Texting and driving causes distraction. I can't focus on driving while I'm texting. My eyes need to be on the road. So think of it that way. The same rule applies in the classroom. Your ability to be able to focus on what's going on is greatly diminished, believe it or not, by the fact that you're texting or using a cell phone. So please just put cell phones away entirely. It'll make life a whole lot easier. If I do see it, I'll I will not hesitate to say something to you, and then I'll probably need to have some discussion with you after class. So please don't put us in the position of me having to have that conversation with you. I want our conversations and I want our interaction to be helpful and something that can be supportive of you. That's my goal here, is to help you in this class and make sure that you're understanding the material. I want everybody to do well. We will be talking about the Bible, and I will be referring to the CEB translation. I know many of us have particular favorite translations and ones that we use. The Contemporary English Bible is one that we use in this course for all of our sections, and part of it is because the language is a little easier to understand, but it is a translation. Ancient texts, the Old Testament primarily was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was primarily written in Greek, and we will also discuss books known as the Old Testament Apocrypha, and many of our students, including even Lutheran students, have never heard of the Old Testament Apocrypha. So we'll talk about that a little bit. This class is intended to be a discussion of Christianity. We'll talk about the Bible in terms of being the church's Bible. It was intended for use by the church and is used as the primary authority among all the Christian denominations, as the primary source of authority. And we'll talk a bit about that and what it means. We will also talk in terms of the way in which Scripture has informed doctrine or teachings. And so I will speak of it often as the church's Bible. It's not my Bible or your Bible or my translation or your translation. It is, in fact, the church's Bible and how it's been used. So we'll talk about that as well. Now, when we talk in this course about theology, especially as you're looking at the graph text, the title of his book, after all, is Theology, the Basics. For many people, that sounds like a very peculiar word. Little story here. Mike Holmes, who has a program in the United States on HGTV and from time to time has had different shows, if you watch that network, Mike Holmes is originally Canadian. And some years ago, when I was in Toronto, Canada, as part of my PhD studies in Toronto, I used to take the train into the city every morning for class, and when I would go in, I would have to cross over at Union Station to pick up the underground subway system, the Toronto Transit, from the incoming commuter train. And so when I was in Union Station, I happened to go down, as I usually did as part of my routine, and get a hot cup of coffee, because Canada tends to be a little cold in the winter. And I would go down and usually pick up a bagel or something and sit and relax for a little bit before I had to take the TTC over to the university. And I happened to be looking up and realized that as I was sitting down, probably within about 30 feet of me, was Mike Holmes. And I immediately recognized him because he's Canadian and produces his show in Canada and appears on television. And I was somewhat surprised and thought, well, this is actually a TV personality. And I thought to myself, should I sit here and just leave him alone, or should I walk over and at least speak and perhaps introduce myself? So I finally got up the courage and walked over and realized he probably put his pants on one leg at a time like I did. So I went over and introduced myself to him, and he was sitting also enjoying a coffee, as they say in Canada, with his agent. And as he was sitting there, he introduced me to his agent, and I mentioned to him I appreciated his show. And then the question that was always posed by people from Ontario. They recognize that the accent I have is not exactly a Canadian accent, much less an Ontario accent. So he asked me, the accent you have, that's not an Ontario accent. What brings you to Canada? And I told him, I said, well, I jokingly said, well, I'm from Southern Ontario. And he said, right, that's not an Ontario accent. And I told him I was from North Carolina, and that I was at the University of Toronto, specifically at the University of St. Michael's College, studying. And he asked me, what field are you studying in? And I said, systematic theology. And then there was a long pause. And he said, well, I guess somebody has to come and study about the finer points of hydraulics and water pressure. And his agent looked across to him and sort of whispered loudly where I could hear it and said, Mike, theology, it's religion. And he went, oh, damn. Well, a lot of folks, when they hear the word theology, and the reason I share that story is because here's a very, very bright man, a man who knows far more about homes and homes inspection and building codes, and is a very well-written person and TV personality. But the word theology is not something that just is used in common speech for him. So the word theology is foreign language. And that's true for many people. The word theology sounds like a heavy phrase, and many people don't know what it's about. Literally, we're going to be talking in this class about what theology is and different types of theology. We'll actually be looking at that as you look at the introduction in McGrath's text, which is part of your first assignment, is what is theology? And there are many different fields of theology, and I'll give you an example. We have fields like sacramental theology and eschatology, systematic theology, which is the field that I studied, and we have biblical theology, just to name a few. So theology is a very broad field, and while I might know virtually nothing about physics, some of you may actually be studying physics or taking a physics class. While I know virtually nothing about physics, I can at least have some idea of what a physicist does as a type of physical science. On the other hand, there's a lot of folks who know virtually nothing about what a theologian does, much less about theology itself. So we'll be talking about that in this class. And as we are talking in Religion 100, again, and the thing that I'm going to continue to emphasize, the role of this class is not to teach doctrines to you or to insist that you believe those doctrines of the church. People come from a variety of backgrounds, and many of our students at Lenoir University and faculty and staff, many of them are not Christian. They actually belong to other religious faiths around the world that are expressed around the world, and in some cases they are folks who have no specific religious affiliation. So in this class, our point is not to try to convert you or even to try to convince you of one particular way of understanding. Rather, we will talk about the way in which Christianity has functioned, how theology functions, and how the church's Bible has helped to inform the theology of the church and the traditions of the various denominations and traditions of the church. We'll talk about how it is that the church has had an influence and an impact on our society in ways in which many people can hardly imagine. We'll begin talking about that in our first session. That's one of the reasons why it's so important to go ahead and do the assignments in advance, and that way when you come into class, you have some idea of what it is we're going to be talking about. You'll have done some preparatory work, and then we'll be able to follow up briefly on that and then go ahead and move on to talking about some other specific areas. that will be helpful for you as we're going through the class, give you sort of a general overview before we delve into the deep end. And we will be delving into the deep end. We will be reading sections, large sections from the Bible. We'll not be reading the Bible completely through. There just simply is not time in a semester to be able to do that. We will be looking at McGrath's text. We use that text fully in this class, and we'll be looking at ways in which the church has shaped our culture. And one of the reasons that's important is because in whatever area of study you are pursuing here at Lenoir University, and whatever your curriculum is, it's important to recognize how it is that the church has impacted so many and impacts our lives, even if you're not a religious person or you're not affiliated with the church in any way or belong to another religious tradition in the world. This, by the way, is not a comparative religion class. We, for instance, will not be specifically comparing Christianity to Islam or Sikhism or Buddhism or Hinduism or Islam. Nor are we going to try to convince you in this class that Christianity is the best religion over and against others, but rather to help you to appreciate how the church has understood its faith, its traditions, its scriptures, and how it is that Christian theology has shaped and impacted folks throughout the world, folks that you'll encounter in everyday work, in the workaday world, following the completion of your degree here at Lenoir University. So, some of the things we're going to be looking at as a part of that is to look at art and music on occasion. In fact, our first assignment involves looking at a piece of artwork. But also, Christianity has affected other fields as well, and we'll be looking at that. Fields many of you may be involved in, and we'll explore that together. There will be tests, there will be quizzes, there will be a final exam, and that information and how that is scored and weighted is in your syllabus, so take a good look at that. Please come with questions that you may have. Mark your syllabus for our first day of class next week so that you can come and be prepared to ask questions of things that you need clarity upon. We also have 2 essays. There is the shorter essay, only 600 words, and we will have the final essay, which is 1,200 words. We'll talk a little bit about that and how that essay will work and how you'll post it, and ways in which I will have a chance to meet with each one of you before you write that final essay. So if you're dreading writing an essay and how I'm going to grade it, if by the way in which we will take a look at that essay together in a meeting one-on-one, which you will sign up for in another week or so, we will sit down and look at your essay. I will read it through, give you specific suggestions as to things you may need to adjust in your essay. I will not, as the syllabus says, write your essay for you or rewrite it. But instead, we'll give you every benefit of the doubt, and there is no reason why at the final essay, when you make those corrections, there is no reason at all you will not be able to get an A. So that sounds like a good deal to me. So take advantage of it. It is a requirement, and we'll talk more about specific requirements on it. Now, with respect to 2 matters, one, the first I want to say something about the Writing Center. Everyone who comes to a university setting is not necessarily a stellar writer. And so if, as I'm reading your essay, I see some evidence that it may be helpful for you to go to the Writing Center, please realize that that is intended to be a help. I will actually consider your going to the Writing Center as in your score. In fact, we'll give extra credit if you do agree to go to the Writing Center. And again, their task at the Writing Center is not to write your essay for you or do any written assignments here at Lenoir University, but instead to try to assist you so that you can be a better writer and better be able to accomplish the task of writing for the academic world here in a university setting. So please don't be offended if I ask you to do that. It's really intended to be a help. Now, the other thing I want to say is that university policy is if you believe that you have an accommodation due to a special need, you are asked to contact the testing center, and there is information in your syllabus on specifically how to do that. I cannot accommodate to students until I have a specific request, and that can only be accomplished through Sherry Proctor's office, who will do the evaluation to determine what students may need some accommodation. So please take those two things. If you need them, please be aware of those two things. Now, one other thing that I want to say is I'm here to assist you. The point is not for me to leave you on your own. If you have specific questions, I urge you, please come see me after class. Say I need to make an appointment. I am available to meet with students by appointment. Our class, as you know, runs from 1 to 1:50, so I would be available by appointment normally between 2 and 3, and that is in the Russell House. And if you happen to look on your map, you'll see, among other things, the Russell House that is listed on your map. So you can easily find that and find where the Russell House. It's directly across from the chapel in the columned brick house between the auditorium, P. Monroe Auditorium, and the student union. So we can meet there, but that needs to be by appointment. And there is no fault at all in needing to get some extra assistance. And if I feel like you might benefit from tutoring, I might suggest that too. But I want to be available to you because I want you to do well in this class, not just because I want you to get an A. I want you to be able to learn, and I want you to be able to accomplish your collegiate goals here at Lenoir University. We're all invested in assisting you as a student to do as well as you can and to be able to meet your academic goals, and beyond that, to pursue the career choices and directions that you may be pursuing. On that note, I will also mention to you a service that is very important to many students at Lenoir University. It's the Career Center. If you're not familiar with it, you can check with your advisor. I can also give you directions on the map that's at the end of your syllabus as to where to go for that. The Career Center can often be enormously helpful because when many students come into the university setting, especially straight out of high school, out of their primary education experience and come into higher learning, sometimes it's a little difficult to discern what it is that their life goal is. We tend to focus a lot in our society on getting a job, and what we want to help to prepare students here at Lenoir University is to be able to prepare for a career. So please, as much as you are able, please be sure to consider that as you're coming in as a student. So tests, quizzes, final exam, writing assignments, come talk to me. If you also need to discuss accommodations with Sherry Proctor, that option is available. The Writing Center, and also the Career Center, some important things that we have here at Lenoir University. Finally, I would want to say that you're about to embark upon a course which examines the queen of sciences. Theology in the medieval world was understood as a science, and we'll talk about really what the definition of science is. As the Queen of Sciences, you're about to embark what I think will be for many of you an exciting, an informative, a helpful, and hopefully will help to guide you as you go through the rest of your collegiate experience. And even if you're not a freshman, if you're a sophomore taking this class, or if you are a student in a particular placement, such as an early college experience through Lenoir University or through the college high school, in any of these situations, I think this class will serve for all of you as an opportunity to deepen an understanding of an important part of our culture, the Christian faith. Even if you're not Christian, and even if you're a member of another religious group, but to help appreciate the role that Christianity, the Church's Bible, and theology, the Queen of Sciences, has had on our society. So with all of that, I want to welcome you to Lenoir University, welcome you to our class. I look forward to working with you. And please look carefully over the assignments. Go ahead, if you have not already done so, and complete the confidential survey. Go ahead and complete that, email it to me, and look as soon as you can at Canvas and look for the first assignment. And come prepared, ready to embark upon a new semester. But come prepared, having already completed the assignment, ready for us to discuss. And I look forward to seeing you and working with you. It can be an exciting thing, learning, and for us studying together. Please remember, all of us are students and all of us are teachers. You are, as I say in my syllabus, you are my teachers as well as students, and vice versa. I am both teacher and your student. So with that understanding in mind, I look forward to seeing you and working with you and embarking upon what I think will be, for many of you, a great semester. But let's come prepared to work. Let's come on time, and let's come ready to do that which we are ready to accomplish. And have a great weekend as you prepare for the beginning of the semester. Thank you, and I'll see you in our first class meeting. Blessings.